we're going to get our first guest up here, first speaker up here. Maria, you ready? Put your hands together for Maria. There you go. Good interview.
This one goes forward. Ready? And that's your mic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Dimschultz, and I am here to present ways on how I have experienced healing my inner child and sharing some methods that may be helpful to anyone who is starting or considering to start their healing journey. So one of the first steps that I took in my healing journey was becoming aware, getting real with myself, not just about the environment that I was in, but how I was responding to that environment. And it's easy to say that, someone is toxic or you're in an environment that's toxic, but we don't really know exactly the depth of what that is, what the source of that is, and the kind of response that we're going to contribute to that environment. Often I found myself responding to my environment with some of the same methods that were being expressed or applied to me. So whenever I was dealing with someone or struggling in a situation where it involved anger or sadness, I was responding with the same level of anger and sadness. And slowly I noticed that then started bringing me to a deeper, darker state of mind that I didn't necessarily want to be in. And I started finding ways, resources to pull myself back so that I could respond differently. And I feel that I was resourceful at a very early age. I had to learn to become that. So I used that skill to pull myself back when I was struggling through a moment, and I would go for a walk. I would get in my car, I would drive, listen to music. If I was having a bad day, a rough day with the kids, I would go to my room, close the door, and just relax. And there's an article here that I shared about how certain triggers, right? I was being triggered by events, and those triggers, recognizing them, can be related to childhood trauma. My personal reflections. So, in case you guys didn't notice here, there's a Barbie. And Barbie may represent a lot of positive things for some people, but for me it was a trigger. And I knew it had great success recently in the movie theaters. Women went in their best attire. But for me it represented a time when I was 5 years old, 1986, Mexico. I am the daughter of an illegal immigrant. My father came to this country illegally, and he was a migrant worker. He worked the San Joaquin Valley picking strawberries, and they would follow the crop all the way to Washington, picking apples. And in the farm that he worked in, he was able to obtain legal residency. And that privilege allowed him the opportunity to move to the city of Chicago, where he began work in one of the factories. He met my mother, and they started a family. My mother's originally from Gary, Indiana. And two of my sisters were born in that area. My father faced a lot of struggles with employment, not because he didn't have good work ethic, but because he was constantly being laid off. He was originally an illegal. He was Mexican. He faced discrimination. He did not appreciate someone speaking to him any old way, so he got laid off a lot. And in one of those moments of frustration, he decided, with the support of my mother, to pack his family and move to Mexico, which is where I was born and my younger brother. When we were in Mexico, I didn't know, we lived there. I was born in 1981. I lived there until I was 6 years old. And I did not realize that we were poor. I had everything around me that I needed. And living there, I became resourceful. My grandparents were elderly, they had things to do, they were not watching us every single minute. So I had the opportunity to roam around and explore my environment. At some point, due to legalities, someone with a temporary visa is not allowed to leave the United States for long periods of time. So my parents had to make the decision to come back to the States without their children. And realistically, financing a trip like that is difficult for a family of 6. So my sisters had a bit of an advantage being that they were natural-born citizens, and my brother and I had to stay behind. The time passed. I forgot the voice of my parents. I even forgot what their faces looked like. Still, I had the love and the support of my grandparents, and with the help of my aunt, we were being raised.
Yeah. Caught.
What did that end? At one point in time, I decided to pay a visit to my friend when I was 5 years old. I went up the road, went to her house, and I noticed that she had a brand new Barbie. It was fresh out the box. You could smell the fresh plastic on it, and I was captivated by it. And when I asked where she got the Barbie, she told me that her father brought it to her. It was a gift. He got it up north. And I questioned my environment at that time. I wondered why my father could not provide me with a Barbie. He was up north. He worked. How come I could not have such a gift? So I went back home. I spoke to my grandmother. I told her that this young girl had such a thing, and that I felt that I should have one too. She became frustrated with me. And when I asked again about something so simple that every child has the right to and deserves, a toy, she responded with anger and frustration. My toys consisted of empty old glass Coca-Cola bottles and corn husks. Those were my dolls. And if anyone knows about Native history, you would know that that was very common. Corn husks were very much a thing. People played with them. Those were my dolls. And my request for this doll was ignored. So I took every opportunity to go back and visit my friend just so I could play with her doll. And being in this environment alone, exploring it, left me vulnerable without an adult presence. One day when I was going to visit my friend, an elder man in his 40s decided to grab me and try to attack me. I fought back as hard as I possibly could. And thankfully, with the support of someone else there who managed to pull him off of me, he backed off. He released me and I was able to break free. If that man would not have come to my rescue, I would have been raised at 5 years old. So, at that moment, anger built up inside of me at my age. And knowing that I was resourceful and being aware of the environment around me, I still tried to build, I still tried to have a normal childhood. So, when I saw my friend again at school, and she brought her doll, I created a distraction because not only was I the only person who had not seen this Barbie, this doll, there were several other kids, matter of fact, in whole class, who had not had the pleasure of seeing a Barbie in 1986 in this town in Mexico. So I came up with a plan. I felt that I deserved that doll, and I needed that doll, and I wanted that doll. So when I had the opportunity during recess, I snuck back into class, I went in her desk, and I took it. I put it in my backpack, and I decided that I was going to take it home and enjoy it as much as I possibly could while I could. When my friend found out that someone took her doll, she grew hysterical, and she insisted that the class was checked, everybody's backpacks were checked, There was no beef. Somebody had to be known, right? And she would have to get her doll back. But thankfully for me, the teacher told her to relax, that it would be okay, that they would come to a solution. And I went home with that doll. Eventually, a call was made to my house, and my grandmother asked me about what happened with the dog. And I told her, I don't know. I denied that it even happened. So she kind of guilt-tripped me. She said, listen, even though nobody was around when that doll was taken, somebody saw what happened, and that someone is God. So she threw God into the mix. And I felt extremely guilty. So now I was facing emotions of like, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to make things better? How am I going to get back right with God? How am I going to not lose my friend, not be known as this thief little girl in the community, all simply because all I wanted was a toy. I wanted to have a normal childhood, something that every child should be entitled to or deserves, right? As a child, one does not know the status of their parents. They have no control. Not only do they not know, they have no control of their environment. That is not their responsibility. And sometimes some of those means are beyond something that even their own parents can handle. Eventually, I came up with another plan, right, to get rid of the doll. And I felt that I was going to dig a hole so deep in my grandparents' yard that she was gonna go sinking into the depths of the earth, right down to the core, and never be seen again, and everybody would forget about it. Unfortunately, that did not happen. My grandfather was growing crops, and the dog came up. And then suddenly, I was confronted, and I felt like I was in the land of the giants. I was being reprimanded and told that I was shamed, right? I did something wrong, and therefore I deserved to be punished. I was not allowed to ask for anything. I was not allowed to receive anything until they said so. I was under their care, and I had to follow their rules. So at that point, Three Kings Day came around, and I felt that I had been punished long enough, and I was gonna ask the Three Kings to just get me a doll. That's it. The morning of January 6th, I ran onto the courtyard. My feet got wet from the morning dew. It was freezing, and I ran over to the area where the Kings would have left this Barbie, and I opened up a gift only to find a tea set. And I was so upset. I picked it up, I slammed it on the ground, and I expressed my anger to my younger brother, who asked what was wrong. And I was like, man, if I would have just got up earlier, then maybe I would have been able to catch the Three Kings. I would have been able to tell them, hey, you made a mistake here. I am not supposed to get this busted tea set. I'm supposed to get the Barbie. Like, this ain't right. But that didn't happen. So eventually, I ended up getting news that I would be coming to the United States to join my family that spring. And I felt that in coming to the United States, I would have a life similar to what Barbie represents. I would have the career that she portrays. I would have not just her beauty, right? But the career that she represents, the home that she represents, the car, the life. That image that everybody, all women, get put into their heads at a very early age. I felt that I could possibly achieve that by being here with my family. However, when I got here, it was a completely different environment. I faced other challenges. I lived in the Humboldt Park community in Chicago, predominantly a Puerto Rican community. The majority of people that lived there were Hispanics and African Americans. there was racism within my community. There was poverty within my community. There was gang violence within my community that we just could not escape from. And it was very real. So then Barbie lifestyle did not exist. And I had to find another way to escape. I would jump on the train and ride the L at 10 years old until I could find the same place. I would go to any park in the city of Chicago, in particular Olive Park, which has a beautiful view of the lakefront, and just sit there for hours watching the waves hit the sand. I would become more resourceful so that I could create a safe environment for myself that I was not given as a child.
There's that people. He was doing better. It was good. His name,
So in becoming resourceful,
Yo, it's you so on it and get it to the next one.
sorry,
Yeah, you're good.
and becoming resourceful and learning how to use my resources around me, I started searching for people who would have the same common interests as me. I could always find somebody to have a cigarette with, smoke a joint with, go get drunk with. I could always find a guy to make out with, but I could never find anybody to go to church with. I could never find anybody to go to a museum with. I could not find anybody that would provide me with a good source. And so I started searching for them.
Next slide.
No, that's. And at one point, I understood that in being resourceful, you recognize all of the opportunities available to you, right? You have options. And when you exhaust every single option that you have available to you, there's not much left that you can do except move on, build again. And that's what I did by moving to Louisville. I created trauma bonds with people that left me in a state that did not provide me much growth until I was able to use those resources that I had and break away. And that included my parents, my ex-husband, and I started again here in Louisville. And when I started here, I got a job working with a department that did a lot of engagement. And I was like, okay, great. I want to get to know this community. I want to get to know the people that I'm working with. I love volunteering. Let me see how I can help here. And that brings me to La Casita Center. La Casita Center works with a lot of people who are immigrants and refugees, and they provide resources for those people. No, not yet. The back one. The last one, please. So I found my tribe, not just among the people that I was working with, but the people that I was connecting with outside. And I started working and rebuilding again to create that life that I felt not only that I needed, but that I deserved. And there's some great articles about how you can do volunteer work and connect with people, and many people often do volunteer work to help those who may have experienced or have experienced some type of trauma that they had in the past.
You gotta wrap, so.
Okay. One of the other sources that I had was therapy. I went to therapy, I seek therapy, and I found anywhere that I had availability to have a session with someone where I could let it out. This is a form of therapy. Any time that I had the opportunity to speak to someone about obtaining help, I did. There was a great counselor here in Louisville, Linda Rose, who speaks highly about healing that inner child and why it is so important. I chose La Casita Center to present here in front of you simply because it connects to something that I believe in and something that is important to me. But there are a lot of great organizations in the city of Louisville and across the country that anybody can connect with if interested. Some of their information is here. Right now they're having a drive for the holidays, and those are some of the items that they're looking for. Any questions?
Sure.
Sure. Bring it.
And I'm not sure if you know this area or if you thought it. What is it?
Everybody put your ends together for Marie. All right, get it. Man, you are brave as hell. Shoot, look at that. Jeez, how are you? What? I'm sorry, I can't see anybody like that's behind this light. If you got your names up, I would not be able to see. You gotta be like this. And so you see. But does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, you know, with the glasses, you.
Yeah, why because they feel large, you draw the tail give me.
What is your perspective on the process of forgiveness in healing?
I honestly feel that a victim does not have to forgive until they're ready.
Oh, so Raja, he goes, girl, shoot. What's it? Go on. Oh,
Yes, sir.
yes.
It's the thing. Oh, well, he is a hot parenting a doll, and the beginner half the doll was.
How long was it between the time that the doll was buried till the doll was found? Was she getting real deep here? Lord.
Honestly, it was probably a matter of days. It happened very quickly. Yeah.
Granddad found it.
My grandfather was amazing. He was the only one that did not yell at me.
Granddad was farming big time. We did the fight of that. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Did you ever buy yourself a Barbie doll? The trauma item. Did you buy it?
No, I did not buy myself a Barbie. However, I did buy myself some pretty cool cars. And that picture that I have here was actually taken on January 6th at La Casita Center, and we were able to gather a lot of donations for that facility for the kids to have on 3 Kings Day.
Yes.
How would describe one of us?
In one word, describe where you are in your journey, and then, did you have a question, sir? You, all right. So, in one word, where are you at in your journey, and then we're gonna go to him, and then that's.
I am grateful.
Is he about to ask you a question? So he's gonna pass this question over to this. Yes, ma'am.
You just talk about for a princess what was it, now again for being maybe to be to where your grandparents home while your parents man and they put on. I think there's a story in this and how you're where that thing I would have been able to like what would have been taken care of the law. We don't have that same friendly I don't know about that.
If you've ever been to Nerd Night before and seen the elder when something like this happened, put your hand up. All right, so the people that know what it's like when somebody gives a really, really long statement, not question, and all like, what? I know what everybody else had repeated. Can you tell us what it was like, and tell me if I'm wrong, can you tell us what it was like being at your grandparents' house, unsupervised while your parents were out there? See, that's what I'm saying, it's too wrong.
I like the significance with family tribe.
Highlighting the significance of the family tribe. That's a good question. I like that. It was short and concise.
So, with that, There is a story behind it, absolutely, right? But I guess I would stress that this was very common. A lot of people would leave their children under the care of the grandparents because they had other things that they needed to take care of. And that could range anywhere from struggling with, say, substance abuse to employment, to going to school. Like, you often find that people are leaving children with the care of an elderly, their parent, grandparent, right? To care for that child because they need other things. And they're not able to meet the full needs of being a good parent at the time. I don't blame my parents because I understood that there was a process, right? I understood that if my father did not go back, he would have lost his residency, and that was something that we could not risk. Even with my mother being an American, even with my mom being from Gary, like, there are real legalities around all of this stuff, and that process alone is completely complicated. I don't know all of the details, but it would have involved a lot more fixing that we just could not do at that time. So they had to basically do what they had to do, right? They had to, and I thankfully my grandparents were kind and full of love. When I stepped out of pocket, when I did wrong, they corrected me, such as stealing that Barbie, right? But again, I had to be resourceful. I had to create a childhood for myself. At least that's how I look at it now. I didn't have something, and I didn't understand why, right? And it wouldn't have been easy to obtain for anybody else, but it wasn't for me. And the only way that I could get my hands on that was to take it. So that's kind of where I was with that. And unfortunately, due to the absence of my parents, it caused us to be vulnerable, right? We were exposed to things that we shouldn't have. And it ended up in particular situations that were dangerous. And unfortunately, a lot of people go through this.
Everybody, Jesus.
Thank you.
The next speaker is going to come up, and it is 7:41. And I'm going to try to do this like I normally do. Are you halfway full, halfway empty? Where you at? Let me see the glasses like I normally do. Cool. Empty. You're full. You're good. You're good. You can see the halfway. They're vibing over there. They just got sucked in there tonight. Well, if you need to go ahead and refill, go ahead to the back. The bartenders need to see you. Get some extra in your glass. Get some extra in your glass. We have 4 minutes until 7:45, or we get Taylor up here. Taylor. 4 minutes, y'all. See you in a second.
Down to the quite very fabulous. Everything I was for you know, it's some fun. It's a life, it's the down on and anything on the hover bullet. Ever, like, on the good. Where what? What? You do I even go for the sports? So hard. Yeah, take the time to please. Oh, what if that score? All real and the clap and the fair and I guess to the money. Yeah, I do. Strangers. I'm convinced about cooking now. Okay. This skill and it will lead to a go down the favorite location and I'm going to play that of folks. Oh, I can do that.